Hello, my name's Hugh and welcome to this comic book origin story for one of the Marvel movie's smallest stars. Today I'm here to tell you all about the comic book history and origins of the Wasp, the shrinking and flying superhero played by Evangeline Lilly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, things get a bit confusing with this early on, because the Wasp we're used to seeing in the films, Hope van Dyne, who's the daughter of the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, isn't actually the Wasp who appears most often in the comics. Instead, that honour goes to Janet van Dyne, mother to Hope and wife to Hank Pym in the films, who's played by Michelle Pfeiffer in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Janet van Dyne first appeared in the June 1963 issue of the comic Tales to Astonish, where she was introduced as a wealthy socialite who teams up with Ant-Man, aka Hank Pym, after her scientist father is murdered. In order to get revenge for her dad, she goes through a biomechanical procedure that allows her to grow wings when she shrinks under a certain size, thanks to Ant-Man's size-altering Pym particles. When she's small, like Ant-Man, her strength increases due to her condensed mass, but unlike him, she can fly up to 40 miles per hour unaided. In later years, Janet actually became able to shrink without the use of the Pym particles, and she picked up some offensive wrist blasters known as her Wasp's Sting. In time, even that sting became something she could do naturally, by harnessing her body's natrobioelectricity, which is real science. Anyway, Ant-Man and the Wasp quickly developed a working and romantic relationship, fighting various foes and ending up as founding members of the comic book version of the Avengers. As the years went on, Hank and Janet actually got married. It was quite a weird storyline where Ant-Man has some sort of nervous breakdown and assumes a new identity. And a few years later, they ended up getting divorced anyway. But Janet carried on superheroing and became an acclaimed fashion designer on the side. And she both led and joined various incarnations of the Avengers over the decades. In more recent years, in the comics, she's also picked up the ability to grow to a large size and communicate with insect life. And generally speaking, she's a pretty important figure in the Marvel comic book universe. And happily, this original Janet van Dyne Wasp also gets some screen time in Ant-Man and the Wasp. In the movie version of the character's universe, Janet van Dyne is also the original Ant-Man's partner, but she went missing in the quantum realm after shrinking between the molecules, leaving her daughter Hope to take up the mantle a few years later. And I know what you're wondering, I hope, is the Hope version of the Wasp in the comics too? Well, yes and no. A daughter of Hank Pym and Janet van Dyne called Hope has existed in the comics, but only in a series of adventures where the children of the normal heroes are the stars, and that's set decades in the future. That version of Hope is called Hope Pym, and she actually ends up as a supervillain called the Red Queen, who takes on some of the more established heroes. It's quite a different backstory to the Wasp we're familiar with from the Marvel films. In the comics, she also has a brother called Big Man, who we can't quite imagine will make the grade for any future movies. Still, we're sure fans will be more than happy to get two Wasps for the price of one in future MCU movies, just as long as they don't ruin any superhero picnics.